Welcome back to GA Fan TV. It is the review show after all the weekend's action. Obviously, a lot to discuss, a lot to break down as always during these review shows. And as we very well know, it was the final round of action at the weekend in the National Football League. In terms of the league stage anyway, we know now for definite who is getting promoted, who is getting relegated. We know that Galway and Mayo are in the league final. We know that Armagh have been relegated alongside Donegal. And in Division 2, we know the likes of Dublin and Derry have been promoted. Clare and Limerick have been relegated. And in Division 3, we know that Cavan have joined Fermanagh as the sides being promoted back to Division 2. So certainly a lot to run through. Matthew, how's things since I spoke to you yesterday, I suppose? A crazy day of action yesterday. I mean, there was so much going on everywhere and so many stories to talk about in today's podcast.
Yeah, exactly, Aaron. Thanks for having me on the channel again. Yeah, it was excellent, really, the day of football. I was keeping the eye on Tyrone and Armagh. Excellent game of football, both sides going at it, full belts, and it was a brilliant game of football. Kerry and Galway, good as well, loud. Well, there was moments in the game where Loud had the Dubs quivering, undoubtedly, but in the end, Dublin got it done. But I suppose the story of that game wasn't on the pitch, it was who was on the bench, so we'll get on to that a bit later. But yeah, brilliant stories up and down the divisions, even Sligo and Leitrim, even learning on League Sunday. Andy Moore was complaining about the time. And yeah, a load of stuff happening. And I suppose, on a side note as well, isn't it great to see the sun out past 7 as well? It's a sign that the summer championship is just around the corner.
It certainly is. It certainly is. I suppose with the clocks going forward and everything else and the long evenings coming in, it definitely is a sign that we're not too far away from the championship. It's kind of mad as well. I was just thinking, like, the championship's actually 2 weeks away now. Like 2 weeks, like not this weekend coming, but the weekend after, when we'll see Mayo versus Roscommon. Like, it's like I don't know. I feel like it's almost too close, but like too close to the league finals. But at the same time, it's so exciting once it comes around, and it's mad to think now that it is just literally right on our doorstep.
It is, yeah, and it's bad to think actually that coincidentally for the first week of the championship I'll be back home for Easter break, so I will go to the Cork and Clare game that weekend. So it is mad how early it does start, but it's great for me, great for you, great for all the content creators in the GA and all that. But for the players, you might feel a bit empathetic towards them because, like, when you look at Mayo's scheduling, next Sunday they're going to play against Galway. The Sunday after they're playing Roscommon. That's 2 tough games in 2 weeks. So no wonder they rested players yesterday, Aaron, because it's going to be a hectic schedule for them, hectic schedule for Wicklow and Sligo as well, who were out in the first weekend as well after their game on Saturday. Fermanagh and Cavan have a rest, and Derry and Dublin also have a rest, I think, as well, and Galway. So it's only Mayo on the 2 Division 4 side, so at the end of the day, it isn't too bad. But at the same time, it is kind of crazy how quickly it starts, and it's hard to think as well that it'll end in July, all over July, and we're back to the club again. It's only a year since the split season's been brought in, but it still feels relatively new. It still feels relatively strange, but we're getting used to it. That's the main thing. And yeah, looking forward to the championship in the next few weeks. But first of all, bit of housekeeping, the league finals here next weekend.
Absolutely. Yeah, Rommel says Dub fans are easily impressed. I'm not sure what you mean, my man. You'll definitely have to elaborate what you mean there. I certainly wasn't that impressed yesterday, I'll be honest. So certainly not the not the one to be impressed after yesterday's show. JMac podcast is looking forward to the chat. I'd say up Cavan, but we've been absolutely cat the last 2 games. Yeah, I don't know what's going on, John. 2 defeats on the bounce, and all of a sudden the feel good factor around Cavan certainly isn't there anymore. But albeit you did have promotion wrapped up in fairness, but yeah, not so rosy in the garden anymore after those 2 defeats. But we will get onto that a little bit later. Jarlath says Derry C team losing 8-point lead. Yeah, that was definitely a bizarre finish to that game. We couldn't believe it when we seen the score. But yeah, we'll start obviously with Division 1 and we'll have a look at how the league table finished. So Mayo and Galway are in the league final. Roscommon finishing as high as 3rd, one of their highest finishes ever in the National Football League. So great to see there from a Roscommon point of view. Tyrone in 4th with 8 points. Kerry and Monaghan both survive relegation only by a point. So Kerry actually coming very close in the end to potentially going down. And as we know, Armagh and Donegal are the 2 sides who have been relegated. So I suppose we'll start from the top down to the bottom. Galway 113, Kerry 14 points. Galway sealing a league final. It's obviously 5 games on the spin now without defeat. We've seen Damien Comer come back, Shane Walsh being key again from a Galway perspective. Peter Cook was very impressive at different times. Paul Conroy played his part towards the goal as well. So Galway are motoring nicely, and although Mayo will probably be the slight favourites for that league final, Galway are coming good, and this was another big win.
Huge win for Galway, and it was kind of a typical Galway win. I was chatting to John earlier on about it, coincidentally as well. And Kerry, they were very poor throughout the game. They didn't really offer threat only the last few minutes when I think it was Paddy Clifford's shot was saved by Bernard Power. But other than that, Kerry didn't offer much of a threat, and that's kind of a worry for Kerry going down the line. For Galway, it was great to see Damien Comer back in the field, and great to see Robert Finnerty and Shane Walsh in the last few weeks as well. And it's a sign. Tom O'Callaghan's another player as well. It's a sign that Galway, they're coming back into it now. They're coming back into form with their forwards, and their defence is already doing well. Like proof was in the pudding with Sean Kelly getting nominated for Player of the Week as well. He had an absolute stormer of the game. So yeah, Galway motoring along nicely. Like they haven't won pretty in games, but their defence has been solid with their attacking players to come back gradually into the team as well. So I think Galway, they're going along nicely. They're going to Connacht nicely, and they're definitely going to the championship nicely. But as for Kerry, I'd be kind of worried about them, to be honest with you, because I said this briefly on the live stream yesterday as well. After the Munster Championship, Kerry will be involved in a group stage in the All-Ireland qualifiers. Let's be honest, I don't think they're going to get much of a taste off Tip and Waterford. That's a given. Cork, Clare, possibly in the Munster final. And then you go into the All-Ireland group stage, and you could end up in a group of death, because let's not forget Mayo, Roscommon and Galway are all on one side of the Connacht draw. That instantly puts them into pot 3 and 4. In pot 4, you could have the likes of someone like Armagh, and if Armagh start to get along together and pick up form, they could be a dangerous opponent as well. And it was the same last week with Kerry, actually, because the game against Roscommon, I thought they were very, very lucky to get out of the win. They should have conceded a penalty at the end. So maybe people aren't talking about it as often, but I'd be extremely worried for Kerry going to the championship. But as for Galway, they're motoring along very nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose that is the thing about Galway, like as you said there, like defensively, they've been solid. Like they've been one of the best defensive teams in the country. And that's not something we've really associated with Galway under Pádraig Joyce. Like they've been, like from watching Galway last year, they were, I remember in Division 2, they'd, the best attack in the division, but defensively they were actually quite poor at times. And they were, even you think to when they played Cork, and they were shipping goals left, right and centre. And this year it seems to be a complete U-turn in terms of how they're set up. They look like a much more structured team, structured in the way that they play, and they look a lot more like a seasoned team as well, like an experienced team, a team that knows how to win big football matches, which, like, it's a long time really since we can say that Galway have been sort of consistently winning big games. And that is the case at the minute. And you have to commend Pádraig Joyce for the work that he's done, because, the big criticism for Galway was always that they were far too attacking and they left themselves maybe a bit too defensively exposed, but a complete U-turn, and it'll be hard for Mayo to break through them next week.
It will be, and when you look at actually the team they put out against Kerry, that's near enough to their starting 15 in my opinion. Like if Colin Sweeney there might go out in place of Damien Comer, Tom O'Callaghan might go out in place of Robert Finnerty. But when you look at the rest of the team, Peter Cook was there, Johnny Heaney, Matthew Tierney again, excellent league campaign, one of the top scorers from play throughout the whole National League. John Maher in midfield actually impressed me yesterday alongside Paul Conroy. And let's not forget, you still have Killian McDade to go back into the team. So Galway, they have good numbers coming through. Sean Fitzgerald in the backs as well, very good under 20 player back in the day, and now he's a very good accomplished defender. Cian Hernan used to be a midfielder, playing wing back yesterday. Very good performance. John Daly's back in the team now at centre back, and you know how impressive he was last year in the All-Ireland Championship, especially in the final against Kerry. And you have also Dylan McHugh at wing back. So, and Bernard Power, in fairness, made that very good save, a crucial save yesterday at a very crucial time. So I think Galway, they're getting their players back. They have a defensive structure, and their attackers are absolutely lethal at the moment. And Pádraig Joyce, this is, I think, his 4th year in charge of Galway, and he's definitely building a team now. So I think Galway, they're up there with the All-Ireland contenders. I think themselves, Mayo, probably Derry, and possibly Tyrone, maybe after yesterday's performance, look the front runners so far for the All-Ireland lucky performances in the league. We'll have to see over the next few months, of course. But Galway, they look a serious prospect, and trust me now, the All-Ireland final appearance wasn't a fluke last year. They're going to go for it again, and they look even better this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, Mikey says the inter-county season is too condensed. The All-Ireland final should be in August, and bookies have Galway as favourites. Yeah, that's interesting. I thought Mayo would have been the favourites, maybe on form, but it is like it's a hard one really to call. I mean, what would be your sort of thinking going into that final, especially having seen how Mayo performed this year? Like it's going to be an extremely fascinating final, because in some ways it's sort of a clash of styles in terms of how both sides have approached the season so far. Like Mayo, very attacking, very intense, swashbuckling football, getting in the faces of the opposition, whereas Galway, it's a lot more calculated, calm, measured. So it is kind of it's Mayo's brilliant attack versus Galway's very good defence. And that's not to say that Galway don't have a great attack, because they definitely do, but they've been a lot more calm in how they've attacked, whereas Mayo, it's almost been full throttle. So like even thinking of that final, next week, it's going to be incredible stuff.
You might think that way. Definitely, it might be a clash of styles, and it might be defence against attack. But at the same time, it could also be an element of shadow boxing in this, because if Mayo beat Roscommon, they'll face Galway in the Connacht semi-final. So there could be an element there of not giving too much away. I know, like it's a trophy on the line, but which would you rather as a Mayo or Galway fan? I'd love to know what people think in the comments. A Connacht final or a winning Connacht, let's be honest, they're going to win against Sligo or Leitrim anyway, or a league title. Like, it's an interesting debate there, but I think Mayo would rather a Connacht title and an All-Ireland than a league title, for example. I think Mayo would be my favourites going into the league final, but they might even rotate the team again on Sunday. Like, it could be a clash of styles, but I just think there could be a bit of elements of shadow boxing. At the same time, you looked at Mayo last year preparing for the championship, and they were playing Kerry in the league final, and they didn't show up. And there was a reason they didn't show up, because they were focusing on the Galway game and the Connacht championship, moving on down the line. They'll probably do the same again. I think about it even more. I think actually Galway could actually win it, because they're in Connacht semi-final actually, I think, in 2 weeks' time afterwards, or maybe 3 weeks. So it's going to be a bit of a rest week for them afterwards. But for Mayo, it's going to be full throttle for the next few weeks. So I think Mayo might rotate, but Galway would want to win a league title, because like Pádraig Joyce has only won a Connacht title, and he didn't win the Division 2 title last season in Croke Park. So I think he'd be more urging to win a league title rather than Kevin McStay and Mayo.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, no, I think it's going to be an extremely fascinating game, and as you said, like with the fact that these two sides are likely to play each other in the Connacht Championship, I think it adds another dimension to the game. And it is interesting, all right, because the thing is with the Connacht Championship though this year is that it doesn't really have that much weight. Like, winning the competition, the main factor, the main sort of benefit you'll get is avoiding Kerry coming through Munster, avoiding Dublin coming through Leinster, and obviously avoiding the Ulster champions as well. But like Mayo, for example, could win the Connacht, could go full throttle for the league final, full throttle for the Connacht Championship, get to the group stages, and just get a very difficult draw. They could end up with, there could be a few Ulster teams in there, and it could be quite difficult for them. So that kind of is the worry from a Mayo perspective. But swinging it back to Kerry, as you were saying there, like I think I agree with you as well. I think I was watching the Sunday game earlier, and not enough, I don't think, is being said about Kerry this year. Like 3 wins, 4 defeats. I don't think you can no longer say now that they don't. Like, fair enough, they're missing Paul Gainey and Stephen O'Brien. Obviously, Gainey's sort of come back from injury a little bit now, making the odd cameo appearance. But like David Clifford held scoreless from play yesterday as well. Might be a bit of a worry. Like, I don't know what it is about Kerry, but as I was saying to Seamus last week, there's always been a common trend with teams winning an All-Ireland or bridging that gap where there's a bit of a hangover, and that does seem to be the case for Kerry. And like they've a bit of work to do, I think, going into the All-Ireland. I don't think I don't even know if they're still favourites, to be honest with you. They
probably aren't. And one that has mentioned in the comments there that Galway are the bookies' favourites, and probably I believe that Kerry aren't the bookies' favourites, not that Galway necessarily are the bookies' favourites. I would have thought Mayo, maybe even Derry would have crept into that. But when you look at Kerry yesterday, their whole full forward line didn't score for play yesterday. There was only David Clifford with 2 frees. That's not good enough to win a game. And to round my point even more, I said over the last few weeks, Kerry are nothing without the Cliffords and Sean O'Shea. Other than the Cliffords and Sean O'Shea in the forward line, Kerry scored nothing. That just shows you they're way too reliant on them 3 players to get them scores, and that's going to catch up with them in the next few weeks. And Jason Foley, Tyke Morley, we talked about them being tough, tight defenders last year. They don't seem to be that way in the league. They did in the league last year, where Kerry, I think in the league, they only conceded 1 goal from play last year through Darren McCurry and Killarney. This season, I don't know the exact number though, but they conceded 1 against Galway, they conceded 2 against Mayo. They should have conceded 1 against Roscommon through a penalty. I don't think they conceded any against Armagh. They conceded 1 against Tyrone. So they are conceding in nearly every game, or nearly conceding a goal. So that's going to be a worry for Kerry. In fairness, like in the McGrath Cup, for example, they conceded 5 against Cork. Against Cork, like that's not a good sign. It really isn't a good sign throughout the league campaign and throughout the McGrath Cup. And I agree with you. It's not being said enough. I think Kerry could very well bomb this year. I think honestly Munster is way too easy for them. I think they'll breeze past that. But my issue would be if they get a tough draw in the qualifiers, they're going to struggle. I think the only saving grace possibly would be the stupid rule that they're second and third going to a preliminary quarterfinal. That could be the saving grace for Kerry. So it remains to be seen what happens in the summer, but I'd be extremely worried about them, both scoring-wise and defensively as well. They're way too open.
They definitely are. Like, they're just, and I suppose some of the fringe players as well, like we've said before, like, and I remember even saying last year, like, I thought Kerry had a really, really good squad outside of Clifford and O'Shea. You know, you had Tony Brosnan, who was a young up-and-coming player, Killian Spillane, Adrian Spillane, Dara Roche, Darren Moynihan. You've got young players like Paul Murphy, sort of coming through or Paul O'Shea, I should say, coming through the ranks. Rory Murphy as well. But for whatever reason, like, those fringe players are just not quite cutting it from a Kerry perspective. Like, I think Donald O'Sullivan's looked all right at different times. You know, he was impressive enough in that win versus Monaghan. But as you were saying, like, outside of Clifford and O'Shea, they're just not getting enough from their forwards. And it's a strange one because it's not like the talent isn't there. The talent definitely is there. But a lot of these fringe players just aren't quite producing. And, you know, they've been given enough opportunities to do so.
And this might be a bold statement coming from me, but I think despite Kerry winning the All-Ireland last year, if you had Kerry's B team against Cork, I think Cork would beat them. You know the fact that like Dublin's B team would beat anybody in Leinster. That's the narrative of everyone in the last few years or so, because they dominated Leinster. But the narrative last year was Kerry would dominate Cork in any shape or form. But I think Kerry's B team, and it shows in the McGrath Cup, and Cork played a bit of a fringe team as well. And Cork absolutely slaughtered them that night in Park Rinne. So I honestly think Kerry are a bit overrated once it comes to depth. Like, we looked at them last year and we thought, okay, they won a few minor titles, they get over the line and stuff like that. But and on minor titles, I know the players may seem to be there minor titles, but they haven't won an under-20 title, I think, since about 06, 07. For Kerry, that's not good enough. I don't know what's the reasoning there with Kerry, really. But it doesn't seem to be there. Like, you look, they're playing. Thomas Sullivan, in fairness to them, played well. Gavin Moyes is coming back into fitness. But the fringe players don't seem to be stepping up, in fairness to them. Like David Moore, I think David Moore is a huge miss in midfield. Like Jack Barry and Dan O'Sullivan, okay, they're finding up players, but I think David Moore really was the glue in that Kerry team. And they're missing him, Paul Ganey and Stephen O'Brien as well. And what will happen if they retire or Clifford gets an injury? What happens then? That's my issue with Kerry. And I think they could even struggle this year. And I think the league was a brilliant opportunity for Kerry to find out who they're up against, really, and see what they're made of and excel against the top level teams. But they won't get the opportunity to do that again until, mid-May? Like, that's nearly that's over a month away. So that's going to be big for Kerry in the next few weeks to prepare for that. And they'll be hoping that they'll get a tested Munster. They probably won't. So, like, I think Kerry are in a pretty bad shape this year, and Jack O'Connor has a lot of work to do. I know he said earlier on that the league doesn't really matter. That's literally what he said. But I just think Kerry could be struggling this season because of their. We said Kerry's depth was brilliant last year, but I think their lack of depth this year could cost them.
Yeah, Mikey says, I still don't buy this notion of Kerry dwindling, still the number one team in the country. They're not interested in the league this year. I would agree. Like I think they are. They're definitely not interested in the league, and obviously Jack O'Connor has clearly come out and said that. But is that the best preparation? I'm not entirely sure. To be perfectly honest with you, and I think the big difference between the league nowadays compared to a good few years ago is the fact that the championship's right around the corner. Like Kerry are out playing in 2-3 weeks time in the Munster Championship. Now, fair enough, they're not going to get a test against either Tipperary or Waterford, and Cork might ruffle their feathers a little bit at some stage in the Munster Championship. But generally speaking, I think we would all expect Kerry to come through and reach the group stages as provincial winners. But I'm not I don't know. Like I just think like for some of the fringe players not to be performing, for there to be a lot more defensive issues. I think when they get to Croke Park, they will be a different animal, and you definitely can't rule them out. Like I think they're still going to be thereabouts. Make no mistake. But whether they're still favourites, I'm not sure. And like there just has been a drop in performances, and I just think as well, like we've seen this story so many times with Tyrone last year, Dublin in 2012 after they won the All Ireland in 2011, Cork the year after they won the All Ireland. Like it happens so much where teams bridge a gap. Even Limerick, Limerick win the All Ireland, in the hurling championship, and then lose it a year later, and then rebuild the year after. So, yeah, I think I'm not sure if Sam is staying in the kingdom this year, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think it is either. It was amazing. We were thinking last year that Kerry could dominate in years on end last year because the teams aren't coming up through the ranks and stuff. And Kevin McGorty for the JMAC podcast actually made a very good point earlier on. He thinks that 8 teams could realistically win the All-Ireland this year. And last year we were thinking only Kerry and Dublin, anybody that stops them would be an incredible team. But I genuinely agree with Kevin. Like, you look at the contenders this year, I think Galway, Mayo, Tyrone on yesterday's performance were brilliant yesterday. The shooting was absolutely superb. Derry, I think, are up there. Dublin, if they get their players back in order, like Mannion, McCaffrey, all them, I think they're back up there as well. Kerry, you still can't write them out despite their league struggles this season. And then you look at others, maybe there's 6, but then there's 2 other fringe teams, maybe the likes of Armagh, possibly Monaghan, possibly, but maybe Roscommon, so that's about 9. So, like, there's still, like, Kerry still have to beat a lot of teams to get their hands on the Sam Maguire, and I just don't think this team is capable of doing that this season. I haven't seen it in the league, and that's just my opinion. It might bite me on the backside come the end of the year, but just don't think Kerry are motoring along nicely as other counties this season. You look at Derry, you look at Galway, you look at Mayo. That's the benchmark this season, and Kerry aren't reaching that mid benchmark so far. So that's my issue with Kerry, and I agree with you. I don't think Sam Maguire is returning to the kingdom this season.
Absolutely. JMac podcast says, Aaron, can you give my Mrs. Rebecca a shout out, please? She loves your channel, is trying to get me to do housework here. You're a great distraction. Yeah. Cheers, Rebecca. Fair play. Keep up the good work. John's a good man. He's a great man. So yeah, you chose the right option there, in fairness. And yeah, appreciate all the support. What can I say? But yeah, that comment definitely threw me a bit off guard. I'm not too sure where I was going now, to be honest. I'm not too sure what I was going to say next, but yeah.
Yeah, I think you were talking about Kerry there and All-Ireland, but on a side note, yeah, it's great that the whole family's enjoying the podcast, John. I'm sure Aaron is going to say that right back at you as well. So 2 very good podcasts on YouTube at the moment. So everybody watching this, check them out, and they're absolutely brilliant.
Happy days. Yeah, no, I think all in all, from a Kerry perspective, maybe to wrap up on that subject, like, yeah, I think there is work to do. I certainly still think they have the potential to dominate. I think with the players, with the age profile of their starting 15, like O'Shea, Clifford, Tom O'Sullivan, these lads, they're still young players. They still have a lot of years ahead of them. But I do think there is work to be done this year, I think. And there is the potential as well, looking at it, that this could be the most open championship possibly since 2010. Like when you look at all the contenders, so there definitely is a lot to be excited for. Moving on, then we'll take a look at the game obviously that happened between Tyrone and Armagh. Obviously, you were watching the game and seeing the highlights as well. So it was Tyrone 18 points, Armagh 16 points. Big result from a Tyrone perspective, and Armagh relegated back down to Division 2.
Yeah, and it was coming for a number of weeks, to be honest with you. I thought Armagh were pretty terrible in the previous, up to match day 6. But yesterday, it changed. And I don't know why it changed so late in the day. Maybe it was something with Rian O'Neill and Kieran McGeeney having a bust up behind the scenes and something just clicked. I don't know, seriously. But Armagh turned up yesterday, in fairness to them. But I think, honestly, it wasn't a temperament issue or defensive issue and all that. It was a shooting issue. They had 9 wides yesterday. And you can't win a game with 9 wides at this magnitude. And unfortunately, it wasn't enough and they went down. But to be honest, yesterday's performance didn't merit them going down, but the previous 6 match days did, if that makes sense. I thought Armagh, their defensive system was questionable, bizarre. I don't know why they did it in the first 6 games. They opened up yesterday and they performed excellent football, as good as they did last year. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. And we should really criticise Armagh for the wides and stuff like that yesterday. I thought Tyrone were absolutely superb. And we say that Kerry are going in under the radar doing badly. I think Tyrone are going under the radar how well they're doing. 75% kicking accuracy yesterday. That's superb, I have to say. Darragh McCurry hitting the lights out. Darragh Canavan went off. I think it looked like an injury, even looking at the league highlights or looking at it back. But he scored 1 point. He was still buzzing around the place. But even when he went off, the lads like Peter Hart, Ronan McNamee, Conn Kilpatrick, they all stepped up to the plate. And fair play to Tyrone, they got the win in the end. And unlucky not to make a league final in the end. But correct me if I'm wrong now, Aaron, I think that's 4 league wins in a row against Armagh, Kerry and someone else. But that's incredible form, I have to say, for Tyrone. It's pretty good going. So, yeah, very good. I think it's 3 wins in a row, actually, to beat Donegal in match day 2. 3 wins in a row. And they're going into the Ulster Championship game against Monaghan. They're picking up form at the right time now. And I think while Galway, Mayo and Derry are looking the most impressive, tipping along nicely, their players are coming back and they're performing well in the league. I think Tyrone could be a dark horse for the All-Ireland. I honestly think so, because you look at their form at the end of the league, the players are coming back into it now. There's a buy-in. The players are trying their hardest. Yesterday, they were absolutely superb. Their shooting was brilliant. Their tactics were spot on. Their defenders were getting involved. The likes of Paddy Hampsey as well as McNamee and Peter Hart. Cormac Quinn, a cornerback, has really impressed me from there. Benny Gallen came in instead of Niall Morgan and was relatively solid as well. I think Tyrone could be dark horses for the All-Irelands. I don't know what people think of that, but I just believe Tyrone are not a team to be slept on this season, especially for the Ulster Championship. If they were to beat Derry in an Ulster semi-final, that would be some titanic battle, because 2 of them are on form at the moment. And to be honest, even the Monaghan game at the quarter-final before the Derry game, that could be a titanic battle as well. So that could be Tyrone to Achilles' heel at the same time, having that tough side of the draw. But they're performing very well and they're doing themselves favours by performing to this level in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. Mikey says Tyrone looking fresh again. Can only see Derry stopping them in Ulster. Yeah, I think, Tyrone and Derry are looking very, very strong there at the minute. But no, I agree with what you're saying as well. Like, I think Tyrone are All-Ireland contenders. Like, and I think to be fair, they were contenders before a ball was kicked this year. Given the fact that they were All-Ireland champions 2 years ago, under 20 All-Ireland champions last year, still have a core group of players there. Although, fair enough, Conor McKenna is obviously, gone playing AFL. A few other lads on the fringes have opted out, and there's been murmurings of maybe, problems with management and everything else. But when you looked at the team that they have, some of the younger players coming through, like obviously Darragh Canavan's been brilliant, Rory Canavan's been breaking through, Conor Cush is another young player as well. Like, I always had the feeling that they were serious contenders, but it was just so much inconsistency at the start of the league. But it seems like they've got that out of their system now, and you definitely can't rule them out now going into the championship.
Exactly. So and I concur with the commenter there saying that Derry are the only team to stop them. Because you look at the other teams in Ulster, possibly Monaghan or third. We'll get onto them in a minute. But then you have Donegal, Armagh, who have been underwhelming in the league. If Armagh play an attacking style, I think they could easily get to an Ulster final. And it's just a small tweak, but I think Armagh could get there. And Tyrone, they look very good. And I think it's very hard to win 2 Ulster titles in a row. Derry, Rory Gallagher will definitely know that, being an Ulster manager before in Fermanagh and Donegal, and obviously being assistant manager to Jim McGuinness all them years ago as well. Derry are going to be targeted, and Tyrone will be up for the fight as well. And yeah, maybe the game against Monaghan could be a good thing for Tyrone because it keeps the consistency going against bigger opposition. And it's looking good for Tyrone and Dover and Logan at the moment. They look a serious prospect this season, and they look like a team that are relishing to go. In fairness to them, they look a very good prospect this season, and looking forward to seeing how they progress in the championship.
Yeah, and I suppose lastly on this game then to finish up on Armagh, I mean, as you said, like they did perform well in this game. Like they kicked 16 points and, you know, they did turn up to the occasion, obviously playing their big rivals with so much to play for, in fairness. But as you said, Tyrone were excellent, and it was probably more so about Tyrone being better than Armagh being poor. But I suppose when you look at the overall aspect of the season, like it's hard to know where things have gone wrong from an Armagh perspective. I mean, they're a team that I think a lot of people expected to push on and compete for the league, you know, to possibly win the competition, to also, you know, compete for the Ulster Championship as well. You know, murmurings about Rian O'Neill and Kieran McGeeney and everything else, and, you know, WhatsApp videos being sent around and, you know, voice recordings and messages and everything else, and you don't know what's true and what isn't. And all the murmurings about him being injured, and then he's in the panel, then he's not. It seems to be something not right with Armagh in the overall picture. I know they did play well yesterday, but I think there's big pressure now on Armagh going into Ulster because, you know, McGeeney's there, 7-8 years now. One would wonder, like, if they don't do too well in the Ulster Championship and the All-Ireland series, you know, there might be a change in management there.
There could be, yeah, and they're definitely under pressure because a lot of people would have backed them for Ulster. Like, for example, in the Division 1 predictions, I would have backed them to get to a league final because of their performances last season. And you look at them, they're down. And to be honest, I know I made that prediction early on in the year, but I definitely believe that Armagh deserve to go down because they implemented this bizarre defensive system. The Cooper, it's articulated brilliantly on the League Sunday last night. Saying there's Armagh, they played open, expansive football and they were conceding too much, and now they're not scoring, playing a defensive system. So they need to find that balance and quick. I honestly think they're better attacking teams because they could easily win a game. Like you look at the Galway game last year was a crazy game, but at the same time, Armagh were competitive. And when you look at Armagh last season, they were a penalty shootout away from being in an All-Ireland final. You know, so you have to go with him. Like if the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So why is Kieran McGeeney fixing it with defensive systems in the first few games? But the stuff that went on during the week, I suppose the lesson is you should never trust WhatsApp messages and say that out there. But it was crazy what happened with Rian O'Neill. First he's injured, then he isn't, then he's on the panel, then he had a brawl, then something else happened, and now he'll make it for the Antrim game of the Ulster Championship. It's crazy what's happened over the last few days. But before we leave Armagh, there was an interesting tweet from Niall McCoy here. In the last 10 seasons about Armagh, no Ulster final appearance. In the Ulster under 20, no final appearance either in the last 10 seasons. In the minor, one final appearance. In the club, Ulster Club Championship, one final appearance. And then intermediate, junior and junior club championships, no final appearance either. So is there a question, is there something with Armagh fans that they kind of underestimate what Kieran McGeeney has done over that time? Because by the looks of those stats, I don't think the crop of players is coming through in Armagh. By the looks of things, they're under 20 and minor success. But Kieran McGeeney still built the side with very talented players. So I honestly think Armagh fans over the last few weeks or so are maybe a bit too hard on them. Look at those stats from Niall McCoy they put out. So it's an interesting take, but I think maybe they need to look at those stats and read them in further detail before criticising McGeeney in the future.
Yeah, I think so. Like, and that's the thing with Armagh. Like, they for a while, we always looked at Armagh in the same breath, almost as Derry, I felt, where they were this up-and-coming team. The young players, a bit of a golden generation of talent in the likes of Rian O'Neill, Charlie O'Byrnes, and obviously the sort of new blood of Cross-McGlen players who've sort of burst through in the last couple of seasons. And for a while, you were waiting for it to click, and slowly but surely it looked like it was getting there. And I think last year felt like the big sort of coming out season from an Armagh perspective. And the big thing was then this year, can they kick on and can they go one better and maybe not win the Ulster title, but get to a final and really kick on. But like, look, they might go on to do that, but especially if O'Neill is injured as well, like it's going to be very hard for Armagh to do that.
You might think that way, looking at their form in the league, but you look at that side of the draw as well. It's an easy side of the draw when you look at it. They have to play Cavan in the quarter final. Like Cavan, if they lose,
Cavan could beat them though. I think Cavan might beat them.
They could beat them. I definitely think so. But looking at Cavan, we'll get on to them in a minute. But if they lose to Fermanagh in the Division 3 final, that's 3 losses in a row. And momentum's a big thing. I'm telling you, like it could feed into the Ulster Championship. Antrim, they should beat. Antrim are the worst defence in the whole National League. And then on the other side of the drive, Down, again, another side that could beat them. I'm telling you, like Down could fancy their chances. Donegal are an absolute mess. Again, we'll get to Donegal in a minute, but the less said about them, the better. But when you look at that side of the draw, Aaron, you'd still think Armagh are favourites, surely, to get to an Ulster final. You'd think at this point Armagh they know what it takes to lose an Ulster Championship game. Surely it's the time now where they have to reach an Ulster final. If they're not going to reach an Ulster final with this path to the final, they never will in the next 10 years. I'm telling you. So, like, it's a big opportunity for Armagh, and they have to play like they did yesterday. If they play like they did yesterday, Aaron, I think they'll get to the Ulster final, and comfortably enough. But if they revert to a defensive system, Down or Cavan could beat them easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose another team that's on the up in the Ulster province is Monaghan, and that was a big away win for them away to Mayo. Obviously, Mayo had a much changed team, a few fresh faces coming in, a few players rested. But the likes of O'Shea, from what I've seen, did start, and there were certainly still some big players out on the pitch from a Mayo perspective. But big result by Monaghan, and they were saying on the Sunday game last night that I think it's the 5th time now that Monaghan in the last 10 years have stayed up on the final day of the season. I mean, it's quite remarkable, really, how they keep managing to pull it out. Like, it doesn't matter who they're playing, where they're playing, they just find a way to do it. And I mean, Monaghan, like, incredible results, incredible story, and they stay up again.
Yeah, it's incredible. It really is. And I think, besides Kerry, correct me if I'm wrong now, Aaron, I think that's the longest current stint in Division 1. That's incredible.
Actually,
yeah. It is really, when you look at the size of the county, I've said this many times, but it needs to be ramped home even more. They're the size of like Carlow, Leitrim, Longford, all them counties. That's Monaghan's size. And they still go to the well time and time again. It's incredible. And they're a county that every county in the country should aspire to. And aspire to them when you think about it. You look at Donegal's form, Armagh, Cork, Meath, Kildare. They should look at what Monaghan are doing at the moment and look, like, if they can do it, why can't they? So they're an inspiration throughout the whole country. When you look at Conor McMahon, is 36 years of age, and he hits the winning penalty to decide Monaghan's safety in the Division 1. It's an incredible story. And even besides McMahon, you look at Jack McCarran's form as well in the league, Micheál Bannigan, Jack McCarran, Gary Mohan. They have some excellent players, Monaghan. Aaron Mulligan, he seems to be dipping in and out of the team, but still was a very good young player 2 years ago, and he will regain his form, no doubt about it. Carl Gallagher is another very good player. Like, Darren Hughes is still kicking on. Killian Lavelle, very good player. So there's good players all over the Monaghan team. It's no fluke. And I had my reservations about Vinnie Corey at the start of the year being an inter-county manager. But looking at him, he seems to get the players playing under him. And that's the main thing in the team. And very good achievement for them to stay up. But once again, I think it's nearly 10 years for them in the division. It's 9 years exactly, if you count next season. So that's an incredible record for Monaghan, and it should be applauded. And then a quick word on Mayo. Look, They're resting players, rightly so. They have 2 tough games coming up against Galway in the league final and Roscommon and potentially Galway in the Connacht semi-final. So tough few weeks for them. They were right to rest players, but for Monaghan, it's all about them. What a victory and what a team.
Could they be dark horses maybe for a run in the Ulster Championship? I mean, as you were saying there, they are on that difficult side of the draw with Tyrone and Derry, and I think if they're on the other side of the draw, you'd probably fancy them to maybe go and reach an Ulster final. But I mean, it's going to be tough for them against Tyrone, and Tyrone's record against Monaghan in the last couple of years has been very, very good. In fairness, but looking at Monaghan's team, like they mightn't do that in Ulster, but even going through like the group stages and everything else, like they'll be a sticky team to beat this year, I think.
They will do, yeah, and it's probably the nightmare draw for a pot 3 team when you think about it. Like Monaghan, as it stands, are probably going to be in pot 3. You look at the Ulster side of the draw. I know Monaghan are motoring along very well. Both Tyrone and Derry are just class above. Unfortunately, I just think Tyrone and Derry will have too much for them. But in the All-Ireland series, if they come up against an undercooked Kerry, if they come up against an undercooked Dublin, I'm telling you, they would be a threat, Monaghan, and they could cause a surprise. Like, and when you think about the one thing they want to do is beat Kerry in the All-Ireland series. I don't think they've ever done it in their history. Correct me if I'm wrong now, but if they do that, that's a superb achievement for Monaghan as well. And they could be dark horses as well for the Ulster Championship or to go and run to the All-Ireland quarter-final. It's an incredible story, and I think Monaghan definitely deserve plaudits. They've done absolutely brilliant over the last few years. And to stay at the top level for this long, for the size of Monaghan, is incredible. And the players coming through at under 20, they beat Armagh the other night, let's not forget, in the Ulster under 20. They have an Ulster under 20 quarter final against Cavan coming up as well. Like, Monaghan look very, very good at the moment, and Vinnie Corey's charges don't seem to be stopping anytime soon. So yeah, definitely they can make a run at the All-Ireland and will be a threat to anybody in the competition.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think Monaghan are motoring along very nicely, and I think a lot of us, myself and probably yourself as well, expected, like, probably underestimated Vinnie Corey as manager coming in. I thought maybe it was a bit too soon for him to come in as manager. I thought maybe they needed an outside influence. That was my opinion. But look, Monaghan know what they're doing there. As you said, like, they're bringing through underage players. You know, they're the perfect county. They're the perfect example of a very well-run county in terms of Gaelic football. And as you said, you know, the likes of your Meads, your Kildares, counties like this, they should be looking at what Monaghan are doing and saying, you know, what are they doing at underage level? Like, how are they producing these players? Because, you know, that's the example. That is the example right there, and that's the level that I think Meath and Kildare, you know, need to get to. But moving on then to the last game in Division 1, we won't spend too much time discussing this, but I suppose the main thing I was thinking with this one was, if you had said to anyone 1 or 2 years ago, this scoreline, Roscommon 21 points, Donegal 9 points, they would have laughed at you. Even last year, as a matter of fact. Like, when you look at the sort of how the tables have turned for these two counties, Donegal last year staying up in Division 1 fairly comfortably, getting to an Ulster final, you know, fair enough. You could see that there was a potential regression coming at some point. And Roscommon were Division 2 and an up-and-coming side, and probably looked like they were coming, you know, to an end of an era under Anthony Cunningham. But a result like this, a scoreline like this is... yeah, it's grim viewing for Donegal, but if you're a Roscommon fan, you're delighted seeing this.
Yeah, and Donegal look a busted flush. I've said this earlier on, and Jesus, there. Even with a resigned manager, you would expect them to come out fighting. And Colin Cooper said exactly the words out of my mouth from this very channel last week. Donegal didn't show fight, they didn't show passion, and it was rinse and repeat. I don't know, like, Donegal are just gone, really. Like, I think Down will beat them. I'm even more confident Down will beat them in the quarterfinal now. I think Down, they look good in Division 3. They got 10 points in Division 3, didn't get promoted, very unlucky. But Donegal look a busted team. And when you look at who's in Division 2 next season, I think Donegal could nearly go near the relegation zone. I'm genuinely see, like, you look at Fermanagh, Cavan, you look at Loud's form. Kildare can't be as bad as they were this season. Meath should progress with the young players coming through there. Cork, you would hope they'd progress with the young players there. And Armagh, I think Armagh are nearly certain to go back up with the players they have. So I think Donegal could be in for a rough ride in Division 2 next season. And it's unfortunate for a side that Michael Murphy carried on his back for so many years on end. And leadership is a big thing. Donegal have none of that, simply as. But as for Roscommon, I'll pose this question to you, Aaron. Is the Connacht Championship stronger than the Ulster Championship now? Because the league definitely shows it. 3 sides in the top 3. Like, that's an incredible record for Connacht. And in fairness to the Connacht Championship, they're definitely producing teams. And for the Ulster Championship, 2 sides going back down to Division 2. That's, I think, 3 Ulster sides in Division 1 next season in Tyrone, Monaghan and Derry. And then 4 Division 2. So I just think the Connacht Championship might be better this year than the Ulster Championship and more competitive. So it might be a bold take, but I think Roscommon, this result will give them confidence as well. And I'm confident Dale might cause a shock, like Monaghan in the All-Ireland series. So watch out for them.
Yeah, I think at this moment in time, like obviously, you look at the league, and the top the 3 Connacht sides are all in the top 3 in the Division 1 table, and I think you could arguably say like the Connacht Championship is as strong as it's ever been this year, going into this year. But I think the big thing, if you were to definitively say the Connacht Championship was better, or the best province, I think there needs to be an All-Ireland winner coming out of there. That's it's been a long time. I think it's the longest wait for a province, for a team coming out of a province to win an All-Ireland. There was obviously Galway back in 2001, I think it was, or 2000, around that sort of time period. But no, like you'd have to say, like the Connacht sides are coming very strong, and the Connacht Championship is definitely going to be some watch this year.
It definitely is, especially that side of the draw when Mayo, Roscommon and Galway waiting on the wings. That's going to be an incredible few weeks of football, and definitely looking forward to watching those games. And even Sligo, if they get to the Connacht final, I think Sligo could. Well, they won't win it. Honestly, they won't. They're Division 4 and they're Division 3 next season, and that is their level. But I think they'll acquit themselves pretty well, despite the fact that Roscommon, Galway, and Mayo are doing pretty well at the moment. So I think the Connacht Championship will be a very interesting watch this season, especially that side of the draw. And roll on the championship.
Absolutely. Gavin says final would have been nice, but 3rd place in Division 1 with 8 points is massive for Ross compared to only 2 or 3 in the last few attempts. Yeah, it is a fair point, and Roscommon are making great strides, and as we were saying, I think this year's championship is looking like the most open the championship has ever been. And Roscommon are another side. I'm not saying they're going to go and win the All-Ireland or anything of that nature, but like they're another side that's going under the radar and could be a real banana skin for some of the big teams, in my opinion. But we'll move on to Division 2, and this is obviously how the league table finished. So Derry on top, as we know, they were already promoted in first position. Dublin join Derry, having beaten Louth, and Louth, as we see there, finishing in 3rd. Still a strong enough finish from a Louth perspective. Cork in 4th with 7 points. Kildare in 5th with 6 points. Meath could possibly be in the Tailteann Cup now as well, following finishing in 6th position with 5 points. And Clare and Limerick, as we know, already relegated. I suppose the game really, the game that really had, the only game that had any significance really in Division 2 was the Dublin and Louth game. Dublin winning 16 points to 1-6. The scoreline probably flatters Dublin a little bit. I think Louth did push Dublin at different times, and they only scored 1 point in the second half, Louth, but they had a whole host of goal chances hit the post. David O'Hanlon had to make a save as well, and it wasn't brilliant from Dublin, but a win's a win. Back into Division 1, and I suppose the Louth fairy tale comes to an end in Division 2 for this year. But it was an intriguing game. And what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, in fairness, like Louth definitely a goal chance, a clear goal chance, and not just half chances. Like the Colin McKeever chance, like if that goes in, well, what a game we would have had. And I think they had maybe 1 or 2 goal chances in the second half, other than the Liam Jackson one, which was well taken. I suppose that is a worry for Dublin going forward. Looking at the defensive systems and how open they were, even with the likes of Big Fitzsimons back there and James McCarthy in the team. That's worrying. It really is worrying for Dublin. Not necessarily in Leinster, because I think you'll walk Leinster, like you always do, to be honest. But again, like Kerry for the All-Ireland series, if Dublin get a nasty draw, that could be the Achilles heel definitely for Dublin. So for that reason, I actually think the Kerry game is important for Dublin next week, just to show what they could do against the big sides before they go into a meaningless Leinster Championship, let's be honest. So, yeah, it's going to be a big game for Dublin next week. But for Louth, I think they've been a credit to themselves in Division 2 this season. I think they've been superb, in fairness to them. And Mickey Hart definitely adding an attacking element to them. And when you look at how he's changed that team from being ultra defensive into semi-attacking, I think it's been brilliant. And even without Samuel Roy in the team as well. And it looks like, I hope Samuel Roy's now out for the full season, because it's not what Louth deserve really. But look, it is what it is. But Louth have acquitted themselves well. But for Dublin, I'm sure the big story was off the pitch. But look, on the pitch, they went up to Division 2. Or Division 1, sorry.
Yeah, and as you mentioned there, like Stephen Cluxton sort of coming out of absolutely nowhere, almost remind me of WWE down the years, where you just get someone who just, jumps up from the dead or comes back out of nowhere or something. And this was very similar. Like, I mean, Cluxton, I suppose some people were saying, and some people were commenting on the Instagram video I put up saying, he hasn't retired. He never officially retired, but he hasn't played since 2020, and it was fairly certain anyway that we weren't going to see him again. He's back in the panel, but he's going to be back up as well. It's a bit strange, isn't it? It's a bit odd. You think, given his age, given how good of a goalkeeper he is, you'd imagine he still has them same abilities. And although David O'Hanlon's been absolutely fantastic, if you have Cluxton back in the panel, you should just start him, in my opinion, because he is a legendary Dublin GA figure. And for me, like, I would still imagine he's still got them same abilities. But what do you think?
It's a bold take, to be honest with you, about Cluxton. And don't get me wrong, Cluxton is the best keeper I've ever seen, probably the best keeper in history. But the elephant in the room, Aaron, he's 41 years of age. And another thing is, well, David O'Hanlon's been superb in Division 2. And I just think it'll be harsh on O'Hanlon if he just gets dropped now for a guy coming back into the panel. And I said at the stream yesterday, it was just like, I'm sure Dublin fans are glad that he's back, but it's a strange move, to be honest with you, especially with O'Hanlon doing so well in the team at the moment. I know JC Farrell is saying, we've goalkeeper issues, but I'm just thinking, why could you bring up other goalkeepers from underage and stuff like that? There's surely more with the size of Dublin, but look, it was an unexpected U-turn, and people were saying yesterday it's the most Cluxton-esque thing to do. And yeah, he did it under wraps, unexpected, and nobody read about it or anything. And he's back in the team. It's pretty incredible stuff. But to start him, it's a harsh one now, because I think a lot of Dublin fans would have said over the last few years, drop Mick Fitzsimons, drop Johnny Cooper, drop Philly McMahon, because they're too old. So why would you start Cluxton then? So I know Cluxton is an unbelievable goalkeeper, but at the same time, O'Hanlon's been superb. And I'd really feel sorry for O'Hanlon if he's getting dropped just because of a major comeback. But look, it might be the case for Dublin coming to summer, but we'll have to wait and see, I suppose.
Yeah, like, I do get what you mean. Like, like in some ways, it kind of nearly feels like the last dance for Cluxton in some ways. Like, and the thing is with goalkeepers is that, and we see this in other sports as well, is that goalkeepers can go on until they're 43, 44. Like, you train differently as a goalkeeper. It's almost like a separate sport in some ways. I know some modern day goalkeepers are now almost playing as midfielders. It's probably a little bit different now, but I still think Cluxton has it there. Has the engine is there. I suppose it has been a couple of years since he's played, and maybe you don't want to take the shine off David O'Hanlon, who has been performing well this year. It definitely is an interesting one, and one would wonder, do you even give Cluxton a run out in the Leinster Championship against, who we're playing? I think it might be Wexford maybe in the opening round. I'm not sure, but do you give him a run out there? I don't know, but yeah, kind of mad. Like seeing Paul Mannion come on as well, Jack McCaffrey there, Pat Gilroy obviously in the backroom team. I mean, who knows at this point? Maybe Bernard Brogan and Dermot Connolly might make a return at this stage. It seems like Dublin are putting the band back together.
Maybe so, and maybe Jason Burlock will come back from his foray in the police. He might, So Yeah, it's an interesting time to be a Dublin fan at the moment, but yeah, it's strange the way Cluxton came back as well. The fact that Dublin J just posted a video for having Cluxton wearing the number 28, running out the Hollow Turf from HQ, and suddenly he's back in the team. I mean, it's incredible. There was no news of it during the week. Nobody expected it. No one was talking about it, and he's there. Look, it's incredible, really, what has you know, progressed over the last few days. But yeah, he's back in the team. But I know he's a legend for Dublin GA, but maybe the game has moved on a small bit, and maybe O'Hanlon deserves a chance at goal. I just think for his performances alone, I think honestly it might be a bold show, but I think Dublin probably wouldn't have got out to Division 2 without David O'Hanlon's influence. So it would have been harsh just to drop him just like that. So yeah, I think David O'Hanlon should keep his place. It's only the right thing to do to reward him for his brilliant performances over the league campaign. But it's great to have Cluxton back. It's a great story. But the question is, will he be a coach? Will he be a further influence on the team? Will he be there for the dressing room? If he's there just for the dressing room, I think it's a good thing, because Dublin don't necessarily have leaders around the dressing room when you think about it. Like McCaffrey, maybe Mannion, Dean Rock, Costello, possibly, but the likes of Philip McMahon, Johnny Cooper, they're gone now. So, like, Cluxton coming in might be a blessing in disguise, going into the dressing room and giving the young lads tips.
Yeah, I think so. Like, and that's what I did here. In fairness, that he has gone in, in some form as a coaching role. I don't know if Cluxton would ever be the man to manage Dublin. Like, he is very private. You very rarely see him do interviews. I don't know if he'd want that spotlight on him, to be honest with you. But I think him in the background as a coach of some sort, I think would be brilliant for Dublin. And one has actually wondered why he hasn't been in the squad as a coach already. Given how brilliant of a captain he's been for Dublin throughout the 8 All-Irelands that he's won. But yeah, I suppose lastly, finishing up on Louth, like, obviously great season for them, finishing with 8 points. A bit like Roscommon, they were coming up as a side that's a lot of people predicted to be relegated. Phenomenal season, and they're definitely the front runners to be back in Croke Park in a few months' time in the Leinster final.
Exactly, and you look at them. We talked about sides of the draw in Ulster, and you look at those sides of the draw in Leinster. They definitely have a run to the Leinster final. Definitely, they play Westmeath, all going well in the quarter final. Then Offaly or Meath probably in the semi final. So it's an easy enough run to the final, especially with Westmeath concentrating on their All Ireland place. But even if they kind of mess up in Leinster, they're still third in the league, so that would rank them 11th overall in the league ranking. So that should be enough to get to the Sam Maguire Cup. So fair play to Louth, fair play to Mickey Hart. Brilliant league campaign. And finally, it was about time, Aaron, they got shown on League Sunday. So round of applause to RT there for showing them at last. But eventually, last point of note, Joanne never said that apology afterwards to No J. And it was the one thing I was expecting.
Yeah, no, like, because when I watched it this morning, like, I actually rewinded it because I was like, I think I missed it. I think I must have missed it. So I rewinded it and there was nothing there. Nothing there. So I don't know. Like, so some people say that RT have an issue with Mickey Hart and all this scenario and everything else and the problems between them. And I know some people have commented on some of the videos recently saying that, yeah, you'd wonder if there is some substance to it, to be fair, because like it all just is a bit odd. I know they did show them in the end, but just completely brushing it under the carpet was, it was very vintage RT, I must say.
Exactly. Yeah. If you was the pundits, Colin Cooper and the Lee Heagan were actually nice to Louth, so that was something at least. In that they were all praised for them, and they were saying, look, they're second to Leinster on merit. So at least they said that anyway. At least they were truthful. But there might be, you're definitely right about Mickey Hart. They've had troubles with Mickey Hart not refusing to do interviews, and probably rightly so as well. Mickey Hart just refuses to talk to RT, and it's kind of a crazy situation. But Louth, it'll be interesting now come the championship what the likes of Jackie Hurley, the new presenter of the Sunday Game highlight show, will say about Louth in the next weeks or so. But it should be very interesting.
Yeah, moving on to the other games then in Division 2. Obviously, nothing on the line really for these counties, although Meath very likely to be in the Tailteann Cup following that defeat to Kildare. But we'll run through the scores here. It was Clare 218, Limerick 9 points. So Clare ending their reign in Division 2 in style. Big victory over their rivals. Cork, as we said, 8 points down against Derry from what people are saying, and they managed to drag it back to a draw quite incredibly. And Kildare beat Meath, as we said, 13 points to 8. So what were your thoughts on some of the scores there? I mean, first of all, Cork coming back from the dead against Derry to get a draw, albeit it didn't mean anything in the end, because I think you would have finished above Kildare anyways because of the head-to-head. But at the same time, some amount of fight shown towards the end of the game, albeit if it is Derry's B or C team, as some people said.
Yeah, it was a brilliant performance according to the people that were actually in the last 20 minutes. But in the first 50, the team shut down. They don't know actually what hit them. But then actually, coincidentally, I know Sherlock, I've been praising him on the channel, but as soon as Sherlock went off and Conor Corbett went on, Cork, the striking action went into them for some reason. I don't know, it's just Corbett having young legs. Brilliant performance by him. I think he got 3 points yesterday off the bench, maybe 2. Pretty good performance. Killian O'Hanlon did well starting as well, and they changed a few things, and eventually they got the win in the end. But for Derry, look, they had Shane McGuigan starting and Niall Toner. That's their top 2 scorers started on the team. So look, I don't think it was necessarily a second team. Yes, Chrissy McCaig was out, Conor Glass was out, and Owen Lynch was out, but Brendan Rodgers was another guy still in there. So they still had a good enough team in there, Derry. But very good results for Cork in the end. And maybe the opportunity there was to win the game. Kind of disappointed they didn't win the game after all that, according to people that were there. But look, they got the draw, and the main thing is the Clare game in the Munster Championship. But while we're on Clare, brilliant result against Limerick, and I might be a bit worried going into the Munster Championship now, because that will give Clare a whole lot of confidence, beating Limerick by what was it, a cricket score anyway above 10 points. So yeah, I think it will give Clare confidence, and that could be a worry for Cork going into that game. And as for Kildare and Meath, Kildare ended very well, in fairness. They started very poorly, but 5th place, that could get them to the All-Ireland series, but so fair play to them for that. For me, though, I said it on the JMAC podcast, I think Meath could easily lose to Offaly in the Leinster quarter-final. The way they're going at the moment, they haven't won since match day 2 against Clare. And when you look actually at the first 2 games, Cork's had more scores than them, and so did Clare. So maybe those performances were brushed on the carpet, and they've got 1 point out of 5 games, and that was against Limerick. Again, they should have lost against the team that got hockeyed by Clare. It's worrying times for Meath. I'm telling you, right now, I don't think that Meath team is good enough. And I said this at the start of the year, and I believe this now. Maybe they had a high at the start of the league campaign, and now they're in an all-time low. I just think Conor O'Rourke, and I said at the start of the year, I'll repeat myself, he has a lot of work to do with that Meath team. And yeah, it's going to be a while until we see them at the top team. I think they could make a run next year if they get their house in order, if they get the young players integrated. But this season, I think their defence is far too open, and they struggled battling the last few games.
Yeah, and what did you make of Colm O'Rourke's comments after the game as well? He was talking obviously about it being a slow process, and he was saying that he didn't just jump off the RT hot seat into management. He'd been doing work, with his club and everything else, and it sounded almost like he was defending himself a little bit, considering some of the criticism he's got in terms of people criticizing his tactics, and is he, does he have the knowledge and expertise to actually be a good manager at intercounty senior level? But what were your thoughts on that? And generally for Colm O'Rourke as well, 5 games without a win as well. It's not looking good from a Meath perspective going into that Leinster Championship. And if they were to be beaten by Louth in that Leinster semi-final and go into the Tailteann Cup, it's not a good look for Meath in their first season under Colm O'Rourke.
It isn't, definitely not. But I'd probably go against the argument in some cases. I think Colm O'Rourke, he was a brave man going to the Meath job. And I said this at the start of the year in my league prediction. I know I predicted Meath to finish 7th. They finished 6th, so in the end I wasn't far off. Look at it in hindsight. But I said in those comments, Meath, there's no stars in the team. it's going to be a long process under Colm O'Rourke, and Meath fans have to be patient. And I stand by that. I don't think there's much stars in the Meath team right now. If you're talking about right now, I don't think Meath are that good. And let's not forget the championship last season. They put up a limp effort against Dublin in Croke Park. And against Clare, they were nearly hammered out the gate, but for Harry Hogan's brilliant performance in Ennis. So I think Meath, I still think there's a way back for them, considering their minor success in the last few years, but them players are 19 now, so it'll only take 2 years, another 2 years for them to develop even further. So I still think it's going to be a long time until we see Meath back in Division 1, and it's about consolidation. And I agree with Colm O'Rourke at some degree that staying in Division 2 is a success for Meath at the moment. I just think this might not be the thing that Meath fans want to hear. But I think Meath fans got caught up in the high at the start of the league season, winning 2 games and thinking, oh, we're in a promotion charge, and everything went wrong only because of O'Rourke. I just think there were 2 fluke games they won, personally anyway. But and I agree with Colm O'Rourke in some sense. It's going to be a long project, and Meath fans have to be patient.
Absolutely. And yeah, obviously a good win for Kildare as well. Obviously back-to-back wins, having beaten Limerick last week as well. So maybe they've turned the corner ever so slightly, but we'll see obviously how they get on going into the Leinster Championship on the same side as a draw with Dublin as well. Likely to play Dublin in a Leinster semi-final. Moving on to Division 3, and we'll have a look at the league table and how things finished. So as we can see there, Fermanagh finishing on top with 12 points, 6 wins out of 7 games. Quite incredible stuff there from a Fermanagh perspective. Cavan second with 10 points, despite losing the last 2 games. Down finishing third, but Cavan had the head-to-head record there. Westmeath and Offaly both finish in 4th and 5th. Antrim survived the drop despite Paddy Christie's first win as Longford manager. And Tipperary finishing bottom with 6 defeats from 7 games. I suppose the big game to discuss here was the Cavan and Fermanagh game. It was Cavan 2-9, Fermanagh 1-14. Cavan led for large parts of the game, but a goal from Ultan Kelm late on and a flurry of late points turned the tide in favour of Fermanagh. And look, I'm excited to see how Fermanagh get on, going into the Ulster Championship. Don't get me wrong, I don't think they'll do that in major, but they seem to be sort of building something there. There's a few younger players in there. They don't seem maybe as reliant on Sean Quigley anymore as what they once were. So Fermanagh are they're motoring along very, very nicely, and the fact that they've won not won the division, but finished on top in first place, that's an incredible achievement, and not one that many people, even Fermanagh fans, probably didn't predict at the start of the year.
Probably not at all. And most people actually predicted them to finish near a relegation zone when you think about it. And in fairness to Fermanagh, they did absolutely brilliant. And you talk about Sean Quigley's influence over the last 2 years, and the staff for Fermanagh fans that they'll cherish. They had 20 different scores in Division 3 this season. That tells you the spread of scores is in and around the team. And let's not forget, Conor Love was out of the team, and I thought he was the most informed player of the Fermanagh Club Championship, and he wasn't the Fermanagh team over the last few seasons. But Fermanagh found some James in the team, like Garvin Jones has been brilliant. Ryan Jones, I think his name is. Ultan Kelm scored 2-12 from play throughout Division 2. I think that's outstanding scoring. Aidan Breen again with 1-8. I'm excited to see them not just in the Ulster Championship, but in Croke Park next Saturday night. I'm genuinely intrigued what they can come up with. I think Kieran Donnelly, I said it last year, he did a good job at Scottstown. He did a good job at schools level. He was going to build something in Fermanagh, and it looks like that way this season. They look very good. In Ulster, they're lucky they're going to play Derry in the quarterfinal. Look, to be honest, Derry are very, very good, and I don't think Fermanagh are getting anywhere near them. But in the Tailteann Cup, Fermanagh could be a dark horse to win it. I think so. Clare are in it. If they lose to Cork, of course, they could be favourites. Cavan could be in it as well. Down seem to be motoring along nicely, but there's still going to be very good teams in it. But I think Fermanagh look in very good state to possibly make a push to the Tailteann Cup this year. And who would have thought that if they do get to the Tailteann Cup final, that'll be 3 Croke Park appearances for Fermanagh fans. I think they would have taken that at the start of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And Do you think Fermanagh would rather be in the Tailteann Cup than the All-Ireland series? I think most Fermanagh fans, I'd imagine, would probably want to be in the All-Ireland series just because, to warrant their progress, obviously, from coming up from Division 3. But what like in the Tailteann Cup, as you said, they have a serious chance of winning that. It would have been interesting to see how they would have gone on in the group stages, to be fair, of the championship. And, I think I'd give them a good chance of staying up in Division 2 next year, which should be enough to see them in the All-Ireland series. But as you said, going into the Tailteann Cup, they, between themselves, Clare, and possibly Cavan as well, they'll probably be the three front runners, you'd imagine.
They have to be, yeah. When you think about it, Down maybe as well. When you think about it, Down could be up there, Offaly could be up there as well. There's still some very good teams in the Tailteann Cup. I was thinking Sligo, but I just remember the Connacht side of the draw. So Fermanagh are definitely up there to claim the Tailteann Cup. They've one of the best spread of scores in Division 3. They've an excellent record. And when you think about it, Sean Quigley's only scored, well, he is their top scorer, but he scored 3-10, only 3 goals from play. He's scoring crucial moments, but he's in a one-man team. Ulton Kelly, for example, has scored more scores than Quigley, which tells you, he's the guy in form now, and he's the guy that needs to be watched for Fermanagh. So Kieran Donnelly's doing very well at the moment, and I just think Fermanagh are motoring along very nicely, and they could win the Tailteann Cup indeed. Maybe they'll rod the All-Ireland series, but at the same time, I think they'll progress further in the Tailteann Cup if they're in it, and they'll progress even further if they progress to the All-Ireland next year. You look at Louth. Louth took a few years to develop, and now they're third in Division 2, so we'll have to see where Fermanagh where it takes them to the Tailteann Cup. But even a trophy in Croke Park, I think that 2 trophies in Croke Park if they win Division 3 as well, that would be some record for Fermanagh in 2023.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think Fermanagh, fair play to them, fair play to Kieran Donnelly as well. They've really come good, and not many people expected them to get to Division 2, including myself. And it's going to be very exciting to see how they get on in Division 2 next season. The other 3 games, I'll just run through the scores. It was Westmeath 113, Tipperary 10 points, Offaly 9 points down, 118, and Longford get their first win under Paddy Christie, 317 to 312. So any thoughts on them games there briefly? I mean, Westmeath obviously get a victory, big win for Down, and as you said with Down, they're kind of going under the radar a little bit. They'll fancy their chances against Donegal in a couple of weeks' time.
They definitely will, and I think they'll arguably go in as favourites to win that Ulster Championship game. I think they look pretty good, whereas Donegal look an absolute mess. So I think Down will definitely go in as favourites. Even Offaly, I know they lost yesterday, but I think they could even beat Meath in the quarter-final in Leinster, providing they get past the first round. I'm not entirely sure who they play there, but all signs points towards a Meath Offaly quarter-final. I think Offaly could easily fancy their chances in that. You look at Antrim losing to Longford. It's a strange one, Longford. Yeah, Paddy Christie, pre-season was the big thing, and they didn't follow that format for Westmeath. It's a strange one for Westmeath. I mentioned this in the GMAT podcast as well. They're the highest goal scorers jointly with 14 goals. They're the lowest goals conceded with only 1 penalty scored by Oran Murdoch of Down. They have the best score difference in the 4 divisions, but yet they don't get promoted. It's a weird one, it's a really weird one. And I think Westmeath will probably feel aggrieved about that, but at the same time, they had games against Down, Cavan, and Fermanagh, and they lost them all. So at the end of the day, when you look at them results, you can't have any complaints as a Westmeath fan.
Yeah, I think the thing with Westmeath was that in some of the games that they won against lower opposition, they just absolutely hammered them. Like the cruise past Longford, they beat Antrim by 31 points. So it probably did inflate their statistics ever so slightly. But ultimately, it's winning matches. It's the points on the board that counts at the end of the day. Moving on to Division 4. So this is how the league table finishes. So Sligo and Wicklow are both promoted. Laois finish in 3rd, Leitrim in 4th, Wexford in 5th, and Carlow, Waterford and London make up the other 3 spaces. So yeah, Sligo obviously getting that victory versus Leitrim. As you were saying there, Andy Moran certainly wasn't happy. He felt that there was another 30 seconds still left in stoppage time, and it was a game where Leitrim were leading for large parts, and they started quite strong early on, but Sligo managed to pull it back, and Sean Carabone getting the late point to nick the Sligo victory. And just actually running through the 4 scores from those games in Division 4. So it was Leitrim 2-11, Sligo 1-15, Sligo with a 1-point victory, and Wicklow, they got promoted as well, 2-8 to 8 points victory over Waterford. Laois beat London, 6 goals and 6 points, bit mad there. And London, 2 goals and 8 points. And then Wexford got the win against Carlow, 116 to 13 points. I suppose, touching on Leitrim Sligo, as we were saying there, big win for Sligo, and I suppose another minor setback for Andy Moran's Leitrim.
Yeah, and when you think about Leitrim, actually went as low as 5th in Division 4 because of the head-to-head record of Wexford. So, yeah, pretty bad ends of the league for Leitrim, despite them being the top scorers in Division 4, or the whole National Football League, as a matter of fact. So, yeah, Leitrim find themselves unlucky, but Sligo, they've been at it for a few years now under Tony McEntee, and they finally got over the line, and fair play to them for getting promoted. Pat Spillane has been outstanding, and I will do a preview for Sligo, Wicklow and all them on my page, so stay tuned for that, for scores and stuff like that. And it's a bit of a sneak peek. Pat Spillane scored 210 from play for Sligo in Division 4, which is outstanding from midfield, so he's definitely following his father's footsteps there. So pretty good for Sligo, and just aboard Wicklow as well. Very good for Oisin McConnell to get promoted. I think it's now 4 wins from 5. So very good achievement for them to go up. And as I mentioned live stream before we finish up, I mentioned live stream of Wicklow and Sligo. I have 2 of those jerseys, so we'll probably have to wear them on Saturday night. So yeah, it should be very interesting, and it's kind of bizarre it went that way to have the 2 Division 4 finalist jerseys, but there we are.
Yeah, there we go. You'll have to pick out 2 random jerseys for Division 4 next season and see if you're the man with the golden touch, and this is the reason why these counties are getting promoted. But Gavin says Sligo dark horses for Division 2 in 2025. Thinking a little bit ahead there, Gavin. I think they need to get out of Division 3 first next season. But yeah, but then again, I suppose I think maybe where you're getting at, you're looking at Louth, who've back-to-back promotions, Limerick back-to-back promotions, Fermanagh very close to going down to Division 4 now in Division 2. So there is a common trend there of sides going from Division 4 up to Division 2. Not sure I'd see that with Sligo right now, but obviously, we'll certainly see we'll see more of Sligo as the year goes on, and obviously know a bit more going into next year. I suppose player of the week and moment of the week, what are you thinking?
Player of the week, I'm going to go Darren McCurry. I'll just go for him because I thought he was outstanding yesterday, the Tyrone and Armagh game. And moment of the week, I'm going to go probably Monaghan staying up. It has to be. That McManus penalty just ran the home point even more. 36-year-old saving his county at the skin of the teeth. So they'll be my 2 moments my player of the week and moment of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my moment of the week would be Fermanagh's promotion, and I think Ultan Kelm's performance as well, scoring 1-3, serious performance there. And obviously Fermanagh probably maybe the most unlikely side to get promoted in the end, the team that not many people predicted. I think you look through all the other 4 divisions and you can kind of think people would have predicted, give or take, what actually happened. But I think not many predicted Fermanagh to go and get promoted. So that was definitely great stuff from a Fermanagh perspective. So yeah, cheers anyone who tuned in. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you could. And for your own podcast, Matthew, remind people of where they can find you.
Yeah, I've set up a link tree now on my social media, Twitter and Instagram. So if you click the J Statsman podcast, you'll find where you can find it on Apple, Spotify, anything. And then my YouTube link is also there. Instagram, Twitter, my J Statsman website is also on that link tree. So go click that link tree to get to see where you can find me.
Perfect. Well, cheers, Matthew, for coming on. Cheers, anyone who tuned in. Hit the like button and subscribe. Give the podcast a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts if you could. And we'll see you all later.